Hi! Whether you were working off of a string reel or have been handed a coil of string that was measured from a reel, here's a simple technique to measure the exact amount of string and how it can benefit you in two ways. All right, let's go inside. All right, so let's say you're working off of a reel, and just the fact that you're using a reel of string, you're already saving money because of the fact that you're getting more value. So this is a reel of 660 feet. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and use the frame to measure out the amount of string that I need. Now on an average reel, you can probably get about 17 string jobs if you're using it as the mains and the crosses. But I'm gonna go ahead and measure this. And again, I'm using the frame. And this particular racket is a 107 head size and it has 16 mains. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure the first main, lining up the string to the holes and making sure that it reaches the tension head. And just count off 8. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So at that point, I'm just gonna not really fold it over, but I'm just gonna bend it a little because this is polyester, so I don't wanna kink it. And then I'm just gonna double up the string length. So what I have here is enough string to string the mains. Now, maybe if you're working off of a reel and you might be automatically cutting 20 feet, let's say. In this case, we're gonna measure this and see how much feet this actually is that's gonna be used for the mains. So, and again, that 17 string jobs that I was telling you about off of a reel, it's based on 38 feet. So this is 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and almost 18. So right there, if you're cutting 20 feet before, that's already 2 feet that you're saving. Now you might be thinking, how can you string a racket with 34 feet of string if you're saving 2 feet off of the 17 string jobs that you get off of a reel? Well, we haven't talked about the crosses yet. So in my next application, I'll show you how we'll address that issue. All right, so now I'm ready to start the crosses. And earlier I mentioned how I would save extra length on doing the crosses. So I could actually measure each string like I did on the mains, how I lined it up and I measured it and then did one at a time. But that takes too much time to me, especially if you're stringing at a pro tournament. So what I would typically do, if it's a 16 by 19 racket, I would measure off 18 feet of string, and that usually will take care of the crosses. And if you're not sure about that, you can always go an extra foot. But I find if you go the amount of feet according to the amount of crosses, you're pretty safe, even with polyester. So if it's 18 by 20, then I'll measure out 19 feet. So this is a 16 by 19. I measured out 18 feet of string. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and weave the crosses, and we'll see how much leftover string there's gonna be at the end. But again, if there was a lot of leftover, then I would write it in the customer's file for future reference. So then that way, if I didn't need 18 feet of string and only 17, then that's what I'll do the next time. All right, so I'm gonna weave the crosses and I'll come back to you at the end. All right, so I'm down here weaving my last cross. And again, this is a 16-19 string pattern on this racket. And you can see I have quite a bit of string length there. So I can go around the Diablo in this one in tension. And so I'm gonna go ahead and tie this off and then cut off the extra. You can see that I left the string on the first cross untensioned, so I'm going to go back and tension that right after. So you can see the 2 lengths that was left over on this string job. All right, so here's the first piece. Let me measure this. That's about 18 feet of, 18 inches of string there. And I go ahead and tension this top cross. All right, and here's the leftover on the first cross, and that's another 12 inches there. So I probably could have cut this at 17 feet earlier. I said I cut it at 18 feet, and that would have saved me another foot. All right, so for the second application, I'm gonna use the same technique, but just a little backstory. I first developed this technique when I was actually stringing at a pro tournament. A player handed me a coil of string like this, and it was pre-cut from a reel. And you know, I just assumed it was 40 feet, so I went ahead and measured 20 feet. I started to do the mains, and that was okay, of course. But then when I was weaving the crosses, I realized that before I got to the end, it was looking like it was short. So yeah, I figured it out that it wasn't gonna make it. So luckily I had the same kind of strings that he had, so I went ahead and cut it out, and then I used my own string for the crosses. But from that day on, I always measured the strings as soon as I get it using the frame. So I'm gonna go ahead and string out the mains, and we'll see how much leftover is on this particular string job. All right, so I completed all the mains except for the last two on each side. So you can see that I have just enough string length to reach the tension head. I'm not gonna use a Diablo for this, so I'll go ahead and put it directly in the jaw grippers, full tension. And I probably could have cut it even shorter if, you know, and then I could have used the bridge with the starting clamp on this one. But this is just enough to tie off the knot on this side. And the other side is actually the same length. So both sides will be, we're looking at the same amount of string, and I'll cut it off and then show you what that is. But let me go ahead and finish this side. So yeah, this one's right in there, straight into that. Now sometimes these pros that hand you these strings, I'm wondering if they're trying to save money. And you know, this was at a challenger event, so I think you're probably more typical at a challenger or a future event where they're trying to save money off of a reel. So, but there have been other times that the measurements have been really generous. It's just this one player was really cutting it close. It was just enough to tie off the knot. So, yeah, I'll go ahead and let's cut this off. And there it is. So, you know, you got a little bit less than a foot, but that's enough to tie off. All right, so let's do some math. Remember earlier when I measured out the string for the mains off of the reel, I ended up with 18 feet of string and had this much left over to tie off. So that was enough for that. And then on the crosses, I went ahead and pre-cut 18 feet because I was stringing a racket that has 19 crosses. So on the first cross I pre-measured that, so I had enough to tie off. But when I got to the last cross, I ended up with 18 inches of string. So I would actually put down in my file for next time that I'll just need 17 feet. And I may have to use the bridge, but at least I'll save an extra foot there. So if you add the 18 feet from the mains and the 17 feet from the crosses, now you're looking at 35 feet. So instead of using 38 feet, like I mentioned earlier, you're using 3 feet less. So if you times that by 17, you'll end up with 51. So hopefully you followed me on all of that. So in the end though, you're gonna have enough to at least get one extra string job. So hopefully that makes sense. And about that story I told you about that player from the pro tournament that handed me a coil of pre-cut strings from a reel. Well, I'm never gonna assume that there's 40 feet, and I hope this helps you. Thanks for watching, happy stringing, and let your strings play.